Shalom to all. Today's daf is Nedarim daf Ayin Daled. We are starting at the top of the daf with a brand new Mishnah. And today's daf is sponsored Lilu Nishmas Mars Miriam Sarah Basar Yaakov Moshe Her Neshama should have an Aliyah, and Lilu Nishmas Mars Freda Chaya Bela Basar Yitzchak Tzvi Her Neshama should have an Aliyah. Now in this Mishnah in the Gemara we're going to be discussing Yibum. So let's just remind ourselves. We know that there's a mitzvah of Yibum. What is this? Reuven's married and dies without children. So his brother or brothers have a mitzvah to marry his wife. Now while Reuven's wife is awaiting to marry one of the brothers, it could be Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, one of them, she's called a Shemeres Yavam. Now if the brother or one of the brothers chooses not to marry her, then he has to do chalitza. So Mishnah tells us Shemeres Yavam, this woman who's awaiting Yibum, Bein Yavam Echad, Bein Shnei Yavamin, whether she's waiting Yibum by just one Yavam, we'll call him Shimon, or she's waiting Yibum by one of two Yavamin, we'll call them Shimon and Levi. So now we're going to have a three-way machlekes. Rabbi Eliezer says, Yafer, these Yavamin, they're allowed to be made for her Nedarim. And right now it seems that Rabbi Eliezer is saying that the Yavam is allowed to be made for her Nedarim by himself as if they're fully married. Rabbi Shua says, Le'echad avolei l'shnayim, only when she falls to one Yavam, but not when she falls to two Yavamin. But if she falls to one Yavam, then he's allowed to be made for her Nedarim. Now Rabbi Kiva says, Loi le'echad v'loi l'shnayim, it doesn't make a difference if she falls to one Yavam or to two Yavamin, none of them are allowed to be made for her Nedarim. Now Rabbi Eliezer explains himself, in regards to a wife whom he acquired for himself. This is just talking about a regular case where a man marries a woman. Harei who made for Nedareha, he's allowed to be made for her Nedarim. Isha shehiknu lomin hashemayim, a woman that they were makna to him from Shemayim. When Reuven dies, his brother Shimon has an automatic connection. It's called a zika to the Yavama, and this came from Shemayim. So Einu din shiyafer nedareha, shouldn't we say all the more so that he should be able to be made for her nedarim? So Rabbi Kiva responded to Rabbi Eliezer, Loi, that's not so. Ima marto be'isha shakanu hu la'atzmai, if you're going to say that by a woman whom he acquired for himself, she'ein la'cheir barashos, that's because now, once he acquired her, once he married her, no one else has any other rishus in her. No one has any rights to her. But are you going to say the same thing by a woman who was granted to him from Shemayim? Other people do have rishus in her. If there's multiple brothers, so all those brothers have a zika to her. So you can't compare the two, Rabbi Eliezer. Normally Rabbi Yeshua jumped in and he said, Akiva dvarecha b'shnei yavamin. Your words make sense when there's two Yavamin. So both of those Yavamin have a zika to the Yavama, and therefore we can't say it's like a regular case of marriage. But what would you respond when there's only one Yavam? When there's only one Yavam, so that could be like a case of regular marriage. So Amrullah, Rabbi Kiva responded to Rabbi Yeshua, Ein ha'Yavama gemura liyavam. A Yavama is not completely acquired to the Yavam, kishem sha'arusa gemura liyisha. The same way that an Arusa is completely acquired to her husband. So even if there's only one Yavam, that's still not like a regular husband and wife. So let's just get these three shitas clear. Rabbi Eliezer is the most makel, that when we have a Yibum situation, even if there's multiple Yavamin, each one has the right to be made for Nedarim of the Yavama. Rabbi Shua holds that this applies only if there's one Yavam. Rabbi Kiva holds that even when there's only one Yavam, he may never be made for her Nedarim. So as we begin the Gemara, we open up with a sugya of Zika. Yesh Zika or Ein Zika. So what is Zika? So we mentioned this concept of Zika in the Mishnah, and basic Zika is the bond, the connection that the Yavam and Yavama have, which requires either Yibum or Chalitza. And before any of these happens, either Yibum or Chalitza, the Yavam is not allowed to marry anyone else other than one of the brothers, because she's bound through Zika to the Yavam. However, that's a standard, most basic type of Zika, which everyone agrees to, because that's the Iraisa. Now the machlekes of Yesh Zika or Ein Zika is something completely different. The question is this basic Zika between the Yavam and Yavama considered like a real marriage to some extent? Perhaps the Zika means that the Yavam and Yavama are considered to be in the stage of Erisin, which binds them together in a much more significant way halachically, and there would be many halachic ramification if we say Yesh Zika. So the Gemara begins with that. Bishlam Rabbi Kiva Savar Ein Zika. We understand Rabbi Kiva holds Ein Zika, so therefore even though there's somewhat of a connection between the Yavam and Yavama, it's not strong enough to say that it's like an Erisin and that we're allowed to have a Faras Nedarim. Rabbi Yeshua Sovereign Rabbi Yeshua holds Yesh Zika, that there is Zika, and therefore when there's only one Yavam and Yavama, they're considered Zakuk to the extent that he's allowed to be made for a Nedarim. Ela Rabbi Eliezer, my time, what does Rabbi Eliezer hold? Yesh Zika, even if he holds Yesh Zika, ain't Breira, we don't hold of Breira. Now we learned about Breira, retroactive clarification, on Daf Mem Hey. Since she's Zakuk to two men, we don't know which one is going to ultimately become her husband, and even if the one who's made for her neder becomes her husband, we don't say Hovrer Hadavar Lim Afreya, that retroactively it turns out that when he was made for her neder, he was really her husband all along. We don't say Yesh Breira. So what's Rabbi Eliezer's reasoning that both of them are allowed to be made for her nedarim? So Rav Ami, he gives an answer. Kigan Sha'asaba Maimer. We're talking about a situation where he did Maimer to her. Now what's Maimer? Now Maimer is yet another Yavama's term. Maimer is when the Yavam is Makadesh the Yavama. Midairaisa, Maimer doesn't accomplish anything. However, Midrabanan, Maimer does accomplish something, and there's a machlekes how much is accomplished with Maimer. So Rabbi Eliezer holds that our Mishnah is talking about a situation where one of the Yavamin did mimer to her created much stronger of a connection than standard zika. And Rabbi Eliezer suffered like a Beis Shammai. Rabbi Eliezer holds like Beis Shammai. The Amri Beis Shammai says mimer kind of kinyan gomer. Mimer creates a complete kinyan, and so therefore we're allowed to have hafaras nedarim over here. Now Rabbi Shua Amir Lachar, Rabbi Shua would respond and he would tell you hanimili b'chad yavam. That's only when there's one yavam. Aval b'shnei yavam lay. But when there's two yavamin, we can't say that. And why so? Because mi ikamidi dechi asi achuhi asra alei bebia ebegita. Could we really have something that if one of the brothers comes along and asers her with bia or with a get, that would be valid, umefer, and the one who did mimer is still able to do hafara? That doesn't make sense. So let's just clarify this. Shimon did mimer to the Yavama. So according to Rabbi Eliezer, Shimon is allowed to be made for her nedarim. Rabbi Shua responds that that's not okay. If we have another Yavam in the picture, we'll call him Levi. Because even though Shimon did mimer, Levi can come along and be bail the Yavama, or he can come and give a get to the Yavama, and that is going to take away Shimon's mimer. So how is it possible that even though Shimon did mimer, and he built a stronger connection with this Yavama, that he's able to be made for her nedarim, his brother Levi can take that connection away from him? So that's why Rabbi Shua says that the Yavam can only be made for her nedarim if there's one Yavam, but not if there's two. Rabbi Kiva suffering, Rabbi Kiva holds, ain't Zika. There's no Zika b'chlal. So even if mimer did happen, there's no Zika whatsoever, and therefore no hafar is allowed to take place. But now the Gemara explores this from a different angle. Ula Rabbi Elazar, it's not Rabbi Eliezer, it's Rabbi Elazar the Amayra. The Amar, he says, mimer leBeis Shammai ain't kaina. The mimer according to Beis Shammai is not kaina kinyan gomer, like Ravami said. El lidches betzara. The only thing it's kaina is that it pushes away a tzara. It pushes away a co-wife. Michael Maimer, what are you able to say over here? How can we understand Rabbi Eliezer according to Rabbi Elazar's understanding of Beis Shammai? So we answer, Hachamaiskin, and here what are we talking about? Kagan sha'amad bedin v'ischayev l'mezainos. They went to Din Torah and he was mechayev to pay for her food. Meaning one of the brothers was brought to Bezdin and was given the ultimatum of either doing yibam or chalitza. And what did he do? He ran away. So the Bezdin now was mechayev his estate to support the Yavama. So in such a case there's a stronger connection. Uchder Pinchas mishmei de Rava, just like Rav Pinchas said in the name of Rava. The Amar, he said, Kol nederes al das bail hi nederes, that anytime a woman makes a neder, she's making it al das that her husband agrees to it. And over here he's considered her husband to some extent because he has to pay for her food, and therefore when she makes a neder, she's making it al das her husband, and that's why he's able to be made for it. Now the Gemara in Ayin Dalad on Beis on top is going to ask a question on Rav Ami's Shita, the way he explained Rabbi Eliezer that we're talking about where one of the Yavamin did mimer. Tanan Aramisha says, Amar Rabbi Eliezer had said, Umayim isha shekana la'atzmai, harei hu made for nedareha, in regards to a woman whom he acquired for himself. That's just a regular marriage. He's allowed to be made for nedarim. Isha shehekim l'ay min hashamayim, einu din shemay for nedareha. A woman that was granted him from Shemayim, this Yavama, for sure he should be able to be made for nedarim. That's what Rabbi Eliezer said in our Mishnah. Now, if Asaba mimer, if Rabbi Eliezer is really talking about a situation where the Yavam did mimer to the Yavama, so kana la'atzmaihu, that's a situation where he acquired her for himself. He did mimer. So why is Rabbi Eliezer saying that Hashem was makna her to him? So the Gemara says, no, shekana la'atzmai al yedei Shemayim. He was kind her for himself through Shemayim. Shemayim created that first zika, that first bond, and then he strengthened it by doing mimer. So we can still understand Rabbi Eliezer. So now that we brought the mimer discussion to the table, the Gemara asked the following question. Tifshet by Rabba. Why don't we answer a question the Rabbi had asked? Mimer leBeis Shammai, Eris and Isa, and Nisun and Isa. According to Beis Shammai, the mimer is kind of kinyan gomer. What does it accomplish? Does it accomplish Erisin, making the Yavam and Yavama like they're an Aris and Arusa, or does it accomplish a Nisuin as if they're fully married? So Tifshet, why don't we now answer the Nisuin Isa? It creates a full Nisuin. The Erisin Isa, if it only creates an Erisin, Hatanan, the Mishnah in the beginning of our parak said, Nara Hamurasa viu bailam ifir nedareha. That in Nara Hamurasa, her father and her husband have to be made for her nedarim together. And it seems to be from our Mishnah that Rabbi Eliezer is saying that the Yavam is allowed to be made for her nedarim by himself without needing anyone else. So it must be that mimer creates a full nisuin. So Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak, he answers, not a raya, my yafer. What does it mean in our Mishnah when Rabbi Eliezer says that he's allowed to be made for her nedarim, yafer b'shutfis? That means that the Yavam is allowed to be made for nedarim in shutfis, in a partnership with the father. So we don't have an answer for Rabbi's question. And now we have a brisa that supports Rav Ami's understanding of our Mishnah. Tainami hachik Rav Ami, we have a brisa just like Rav Ami. The brisa says as follows: Shomer's Yavam, we have a woman who's awaiting Yavam, bein Yavam echad, bein shnei Yavamin, whether to one Yavam or two Yavamin. Rabbi Eliezer says yafer, he's allowed to be made for nedarim. Rabbi Shua says la'echad v'lo l'shnayim, that's only if she's a Shomer's Yavam to one Yavam, but not to two. Rabbi Kiva says lo la'echad v'lo l'shnayim, not to one and not to two. Now the brisa continues. Rabbi Eliezer says umayim isha she'ein loy chelik ba ad sheloy tavel reshusai, in regards to a regular woman that he has nothing to do with her, he has no chelik in her before she comes to his reshus. Rishus. Rishus over here means before Erisin. And Mishabaslo Shusai Nigmar Alai. Once she comes into his Rishus, once it's after Erisin, so now there's a complete connection, and he's able to be made for her Nedarim along with the father. So Isha, a woman, over here referring to a Yavama, she Yeshlei Chelik Ashlei Tavel Rishusai. He does have a Chelik in her before she comes into his Rishus. So Mishabaslo Shusai, once she comes into his Rishus, meaning once he did Maimer to her, and he didn't Shetigmar Alai, for sure there should be a complete connection over here, and the Yavam should be allowed to be made for her Nedarim. So I'm like Rabbi Kiva told Rabbi Eliezer, that's not so. Im Amar to be Isha Shekanu Hula Atzmai. If you want to say this by a woman whom he acquired for himself, Shekashem She'ein Loi Chelik Ba, Kach Ein Lacherim Chelik Ba. The same way that he doesn't have a chelik in her before he gives her kiddushin, so too no one else in the world has a chelik in her. And therefore, once he gives her kiddushin, so his connection with her is complete in as much that he's able to be made for her nedarim. But Taimar Be'isha Sheknu Leiman HaShamayim, are you going to say the same thing regarding a woman who's given to him from Shemayim, a Yavama, Shekashem Sheyesh Loi Ima Chelik, the same way that he has a chelik in her, Kach Yesh Lacherim Chelik Ba, so too others have a chelik in her. Who are the others? The others are the Yavam's brothers. They also have a chelik in her. So just because Shimon did Maimer and he strengthened the connection a bit, we still can't compare that Maimer to a regular case of Erisin. A regular case of Erisin, as we just said, the Aris and Arusa are completely connected to each other with no one else in the picture. But in the case of the Yavam and Yavama, even though the Yavam did Maimer, there's still other Yavamin involved. Now, Rabbi Shua jumped in and he said, Akiva, Devarecha b'shnei Yavamin. What you said is relevant when there's two Yavamin. What will you say in regards to one Yavam? So Rabbi Kiva gave him an answer. Do we ever differentiate between when there's one Yavam or two Yavamin, and whether he did Maimer or if he didn't do Maimer? We never make such a differentiation. And just like by other things, which we're going to explain at the end of the Gemara what those other things are, but just like by other things, we say that the connection between a Yavam and a Yavama is less than that of an Ars and Arusa. So Kain Nedarim, the same thing applies by Nedarim. And therefore, Yavam and Yavama, even though they're connected to each other, is less than an Ars and an Arusa, and a Yavam is not able to be made for his Yavama's Nedarim, even b'shatfis with the father. Now, after this wonderful response of Rabbi Kiva, but Lashon Hazeh Amar ben Azai, the following Lashon is what ben Azai said. Chaval alecha ben Azai, chaval unto you, ben Azai, meaning what a shame, shaloi shimash this Rabbi Kiva, that you didn't serve Rabbi Kiva, meaning that you didn't learn under him, because you would have learned a great deal from Rabbi Kiva. Now, here's the Gemara's conclusion. Ayin Hayamad Alef on the top. My tiny kavasid Ravami. How exactly is this brisa a raya for Ravami? So we have two different ways how it's a raya. Either it's because Iktani, Rabbi Kiva had said, bein she'asa b'maimer, or bein she'lo asa b'maimer. Whether he did maimer to her, whether he didn't do maimer to her, we don't differentiate. So we clearly see that Rabbi Eliezer must have been talking about where he did Maimer to her, and that's why Rabbi Kiva was responding. It doesn't make a difference if he did Maimer. So that's raya number one. Inami, alternatively, we could say Meresha from the beginning of the brisa. Diktani that says Mishenichasal Shusai Nigmar Alai. When she comes into his rishos, there's a complete acquisition. Now V'idalai Kaddish, if he was not Makadesh her, if the Yavam didn't give her Maimer, my Nigmar Alai, why would Rabbi Eliezer say Nigmar Alai, that there's a completion over here? Tevshai Minei Kshasa Maimer. So it must be that Rabbi Eliezer is talking about Maimer, and that's the way that Rabbi Ami understood Rabbi Eliezer in our Mishnah. Now the Gemara just explains the end of Rabbi Kiva's raya. What exactly did Rabbi Kiva mean when he said, just like by other things, same thing by Nedarim? Meaning, just like by other things, we see that the connection of a Yavam and Yavama is less than that of an Aris and Arusa, so the same thing applies by Nedarim. So Rabbi answers, this is what was being taught. Don't you agree that if a random person is Baal this Yavama, we're not going to give him skila the same way that we would give a person skila if he's Baal an Aram Arasa? In other words, we know that if a person's Baal an Aram Arasa, so he gets skila, but if a regular person, not one of the Yavamin, is Baal a Yavama, he's not going to get skila. So clearly, the zika between a Yavam and Yavama is not like that of an Aris and an Arusa. And our Rashi says, Masnisanami Deka, our Mishnah is medoik like that. Because what did Rabbi Kiva say in our Mishnah? Ein Yavama Gemura Liisha, Keshem Sha'arusa Gemura Liisha. That a Yavama is not completely acquired by her husband the same way that an Arusa is completely acquired by her husband. So we see it even in the Mishnah, Rabbi Kiva is contrasting a Yavama to a Yavam and an Aris to an Arusa. We're going to stop here for the day, pick up tomorrow with a brand new Mishnah. For now,
everyone should have a wonderful day.